Okay, we'll get started in about 5 seconds. Okay, at this time, we're going to start the meeting. We started in closed session. I will now ask the clerk to provide the closed session report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The council met in closed session to discuss a labor relations and employee negotiations matter, and after extensive deliberations, the direction was given to the township's negotiating committee by council.
Okay, now we're going to rise for the national anthem. Okay, we would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and One Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No? Okay. Okay. At this time, I would like to invite Zach and Emmy up to present them each with a token of our appreciation for their winning contributions to the 2022 holiday contest, card contest. Sorry. Thank you. All right, each year there's a holiday Christmas card contest that goes out to all the schools across Wainfleet, and there is a student from junior kindergarten to grade 3 selected, which will be this year, it'll be Emmy Wainwright. And then on this side we have from grade 4 to grade 8, and it's Zach Vanderbilt. Okay, I'm going to just grab the certificates. Here you go, Emmy. On behalf of Wainfleet, here's your certificate. Here you go. Yeah, you can have the whole thing. Okay. And here's your winning card. Okay. And then we framed the original for you. I had it in my office until today, actually. Okay. Here you go. And you're gonna have to shake my hand for that. This one, though. Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll put that there. Okay, on behalf of Wainfleet, I present this certificate to you, okay, for your contribution. Here you go, and here's your winning one, and as well as it's framed. Okay, here you go. There you go. All right, thank you. All right, you guys can go back down. Okay, please note that the meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. At this time, I'd like to thank our community organizers for pulling together this year to make our Christmas parade held Friday evening a huge success. We had over 30 entries, and it was just mind-blowing to see how amazing everybody came out. Big thanks to Ken Martin. I see him here in the gallery tonight for organizing it all and putting it together for us. We also held the turkey raffle, which, again, was a huge success. My very first time attending. Morgan's a great host. Love it. All right. Now, Regional Council meets the following Thursday, January 19th at 6:30 p.m. The Town Hall will be closing the afternoon of Friday, December 23rd, and will reopen Tuesday, January 3rd, 2013. On behalf of Council, I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Are there any other announcements or remarks from members of Council? Okay. As far as the adoption of the previous council minutes, are there any comments, corrections for the draft minutes listed on the agenda? No? Okay. Can I put a motion forward that the minutes of the inaugural council meeting held on November 22nd, 2022 be adopted and as circulated? Can I put a motion for it? Okay. And a seconder? Okay, carried. Any discussion? Sorry. Okay. All in favor? Seconder? Perfect. Okay, we have two public meetings on the agenda this evening, the first being a housekeeping zoning amendment. In accordance with the Planning Act, a public meeting is held to present information regarding the proposed amendment to the public and for council to receive comments from the public. Staff will not make a recommendation and council will not make a decision on the proposal at this evening's public meeting. A planning report will be brought forward by staff and considered by council at a later date. As a member of the public, you are welcome to request to be notified of any future meetings respecting the proposed amendment. Please provide your contact information on the sign-in sheet located at the back of council chambers or contact the deputy clerk. Please be advised that the sign-in information will form part of the public record for these applications. I will now ask the planner to provide details on the purpose of the proposed amendment and any written comments received.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this public meeting, the first one this evening, is regarding a housekeeping amendment to address errors within the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 034-2014. So the housekeeping amendments are commonly used, and they make technical and administrative updates to the zoning bylaw to address minor issues, mapping errors, and any inconsistencies. This particular housekeeping amendment addresses three main issues. The first one is mapping errors. So these are correcting drafting errors and recognizing existing uses and prior zoning approvals. The second category deals with the agricultural zone exception numbering errors. So these correct previous amendments where the exception numbering did not follow the established exception numbering practice, such as duplication of numbers or incorrect sequencing. So in the example on the slide, A2 is the base zone, so agricultural A2, and then the 1 and 74 are what are known as exception numbers, and these identify site-specific zoning requirements. This could be used to identify excluded uses or additional permitted uses or refinements to zoning requirements such as setbacks and lot coverage or height. And then finally, the third category is missed zoning bylaw amendments from the previous zoning bylaw 58178. So there were several zoning amendments adopted in 2014, just prior to the adoption of the current zoning bylaw, that were not implemented into the current zoning bylaw. So in total, there are about 30 different errors that are being addressed by this proposed amendment, and I will briefly review each one in the following slides. So the first one deals with 85633 Canberra Road and 85637. The subject properties were once one lot and were the subject of a zoning bylaw amendment in 1983, which added a site-specific zone to permit a farm silo manufacturing business. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the site-specific A27 zone was incorrectly applied to 85633 Canberra Road, the lot on the right, instead of 85637 Canberra Road, the lot on the left. So this housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of 85633 from A27 to A2, and 85637 Canberra Road from A2 to A2-7 to reflect the intent of the amendment from 1983. So the second one is for 63644 Smith Road. The subject property was severed from the adjacent farm parcel in 1992, and as a condition of that severance application, the farm parcel was rezoned to an agricultural purposes only zone, which prohibited dwellings. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the agricultural purposes only zoning, identified as exception number 1, was applied to the farm parcel as well as the subject property containing the surplus farm dwelling. And so the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of 63644 Smith Road from A2-1 to A2, again to reflect that the intent of the amendment from 1992. This next one deals with 61430, 61441, and 61445 Regional Road 27. The subject the property to the east went through a temporary use bylaw amendment in 2003 to permit a garden suite. The current zoning bylaw adopted reflected this amendment as A2-18. However, the mapping for that A2-18 zone was incorrectly applied to the 3 adjacent properties, which are the properties highlighted in gray on the screen. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of these properties from the A2-18 to A2 zone to correct this error. Next one is 43581 Highway number 3. The subject property was severed from the adjacent farm parcel as a surplus farm dwelling in 2010. As a condition of that severance, the farm parcel was rezoned to prohibit dwellings, and a site-specific zone was established for the subject property to recognize an oversized accessory building. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the A2-1 zone prohibiting dwellings was applied to the farm parcel as well as the subject property containing the farm dwelling. This housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of the subject property from the A2-146 zone to an A2-46 zone to correct this error. The next one is a vacant lot on Smith Road. The subject property is a remnant farm parcel from a 2012 surplus farm dwelling application and zoning bylaw amendment, which rezoned the subject property to prohibit dwellings and recognize a reduced lot area of 8.3 hectares. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the site-specific zoning from that 2012 amendment was not applied to the subject property, and so the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from the A2 zone to an A2-173 zone to correct that error and to implement that 2012 amendment. The next one is 53223 Winger Road. The subject property is primarily within the hamlet of Winger. However, a small portion north of the creek is outside of the hamlet boundary and is designated as agricultural area under the township's official plan. The current zoning bylaw implemented a residential hamlet zone for the lands outside of the hamlet, and the area of the subject property outside of the hamlet should be within an agricultural zone to align with the official plan. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of this area of the property to an agricultural transition A1 zone. So this next mapping error affects 26 properties north of Winger. The current zoning bylaw has this area zoned as an A1-1 zone, which prohibits dwellings. This area contains a mixture of large agricultural parcels as well as some smaller residential parcels where a dwelling is the primary use. We've reviewed the historical consent and zoning amendment approvals in this area and determined that the A1-1 zone was an error and does not apply to the identified properties. So the housekeeping amendment is proposing to change the zoning to an A1 zone. The next one is for a vacant lot on Bueling Road. In 2003, the property was severed from an adjacent farm parcel, and there was a zoning amendment at that time placing the subject property in a site-specific agricultural zone to permit a dwelling, subject to some site-specific requirements. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the site-specific zone was not applied to the subject property, and instead it was included in the A2-1 zone associated with that adjacent farm parcel. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of the property from A2-1 to A2 to reflect that 2003 amendment. The next one is 33041 Feeder Road West. In 2008, the subject property was severed from the adjacent farm parcel, again as a surplus farm dwelling, and the corresponding zoning amendment rezoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings and livestock in the existing farm buildings. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the site-specific zoning intended for the farm parcel was also applied to the subject property. And so this amendment proposes to change the zoning from an A225 zone to an A2 zone to reflect the intent of the 2008 amendment. Next one is 31811 Highway 3. The property immediately north of the subject property went through a zoning amendment in 1989 to permit the sale of horticultural, landscaping, and related supplies, as well as some site-specific building and structure requirements. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the site-specific A1-7 zone intended for the property to the north was also applied to the subject property. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from the A1-7 zone to A1 for this property to address that error. The next one is 10360 Highway 3. The subject property went through official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment process in 2006 to permit the expansion of the existing quarry operation to the east towards Erie Pete Road. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the expansion area was not included in the extractive industrial M2 zone. And so the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning to M2 and A2 to reflect that 2006 amendment. This one is 13065 Concession 1 Road. The subject property was created when Burkett Road was realigned in the early 2000s. The current zoning bylaw implemented an A2-1 zone, which prohibits dwellings, and the subject property currently contains a dwelling. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning to A2, again to reflect the existing use of the property. This next one is 13004 Lakeshore Road. The subject property was severed from an adjacent farm parcel, again as a surplus farm dwelling application, and the farm parcel was rezoned to prohibit dwellings. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, the A1-1 zone prohibiting dwellings was applied to both the farm parcel and the subject property containing the surplus farm dwelling. This amendment proposes to change the zoning of the subject property from A1-1 to A1 to address this error. This next one is 12510 Daly Ditch Road. The subject property is designated as Lakeshore Residential under the Township's official plan and is currently being used for residential purposes. The current zoning bylaw implemented a residential Lakeshore RLS C10 zone as well as an agricultural transition A1 zone. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning to be entirely within the RLS C10 zone to align with the official plan designation. Next one is 12604 Lakeshore Road. Similar to the previous one, the property is designated as Lakeshore Residential under the official plan and has a split zoning of RLS C10 and agricultural A1. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning for the property to be entirely within the RLS C10 zone, again to align with the official plan designation. This next one deals with several properties on Lakeshore Road. The current zoning bylaw zones the subject properties as resort recreational commercial C3. The previous zoning bylaw zoned the properties as residential R1, and in discussion with some of the property owners, these properties have been used for seasonal and year-round residential use. The C3 zone was mistakenly extended onto the subject properties from 10398 Lakeshore Road, which was historically used as a campground and resort. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of the subject properties from the C3 zone to a residential lakeshore zone, RLS C15, to reflect the past and present residential uses. This one is 13203 Lakeshore Road. The adjacent property to the east went through a zoning amendment in 2009 to recognize a number of special provisions. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, that site-specific zone was mistakenly applied to the subject property. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from the RLS C20-4 zone to RLS C20. This is 10969 and 10967 Lakeshore Road. So 10969 Lakeshore Road went through a zoning amendment in 2007 to add site-specific provisions regarding lot coverage and accessory building height. When the current zoning bylaw was adopted, this site-specific zoning was applied to the adjacent lot 10967 Lakeshore Road instead of the subject property. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to switch the zoning so that 10969 has the RLS C15-34 zone, and the 10967 Lakeshore Road have an RLS C15 zone to reflect the previous amendment. The next one deals with a vacant lot on Forks Road as well as 41558 Forks Road. These properties were the subject of a zoning amendment as a result of a surplus farm dwelling application in 2015. The adopted zoning amendment zoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings and 41558 Forks Road to permit a reduced lot frontage of 26.76 meters and to exempt the property from the minimum distance separation requirements. These site-specific zoning provisions were captured under Exception 29, which does not follow the established numbering practice for the agricultural zone. So the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of the subject properties from A229 to an A258 and A2-1 zone to correct this numbering error. This next one is also on Forks Road. It contains a vacant lot at the corner of Tunnicliffe Road and Forks Road and 41238 Forks Road. Again, these properties were the subject of a zoning amendment as a result of a surplus farm dwelling application, and the adopted zoning amendment zoned the parcel, the vacant farm parcel, to prohibit dwellings and permit a reduced lot area of 28.29 hectares, and 41238 Forks Road to exempt the property from the minimum distance separation requirements. The site-specific zoning was captured under exception number 30, which does not follow the established numbering practice for the agricultural zones. This housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from A230 to A259 and A2-160 to correct this numbering error. Next one is a vacant lot on Feeder Road West and 32433 Feeder Road. The subject properties were the subject of a zoning amendment in 2015, again for a surplus farm dwelling application. The adopted zoning amendment zoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings, and 32433 Feeder Road West was zoned to exempt the parcel from the minimum distance separation requirements. This was done in the zoning amendment incorrectly under exception number 1, and the housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning of the properties to A2-1 and A2-61 to address this numbering error. This next one is a vacant lot on Highway 3 and 11274 Golf Course Road. Subject properties were the subject of a zoning amendment in 2015 as a result of a surplus farm dwelling application. The adopted zoning amendment zoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings and to permit a reduced lot area of 11.25 hectares and a reduced lot frontage of 158.496 meters. 11274 was zoned to exempt the parcel from the MDS requirements. So these site-specific zoning zones were captured under exception number 31. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from A131 to an A1-125 and an A1-24 zone to correct this numbering error. Next one is a vacant lot on Erie Pete Road. Again, this property was the subject of a zoning amendment as a result of a surplus farm dwelling application. The previous amendment zoned the subject property as an A2-58 zone to prohibit dwellings and permit a reduced lot area of 22.9 hectares. The housekeeping amendment is proposing to change that to an A2-1, 62 zone to correct, again, a numbering error. This next one is a vacant lot on Perry Road. The subject property had a zoning amendment as a result of a surplus farm dwelling application. The previous amendment zoned it to an A2-1, 66 zone to prohibit dwellings and permit a reduced lot area of 22.63 hectares. The proposed amendment seeks to change that to an A2-1, 63 to address the numbering error. This is a vacant lot on Regional Road 45. Again, it was a surplus farm dwelling application where the remnant parcel was zoned to an A2-159 zone to prohibit dwellings, permit a reduced lot area of 19.9 hectares, and established a hazard overlay as a result of a floodplain mapping study. The housekeeping amendment proposes to change the zoning from zoning of the subject property to an A2-1, 77 zone. The next one deals with a vacant lot on Perry Road and 63027 Perry Road. Again, this was a zoning amendment from a surplus farm dwelling application that was done and amended the previous zoning bylaw, 58178. So that adopted amendment zoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings and permit a reduced lot area of 15.86 hectares. And 63027 Perry Road was zoned to exempt the parcel from the minimum distance separation requirements. This amendment was not incorporated into the current zoning bylaw, and so the housekeeping amendment is proposing to change the zoning from an A2 zone to an A2-75 and A2-174 to reflect the intent of that 2014 amendment. This is a vacant lot on Golf Course Road. Again, this is another one where an amendment was done in 2014 to the previous zoning bylaw and was not included in the current zoning bylaw. It was a surplus farm dwelling application, and the subject property was zoned to prohibit dwellings and permit a lot area of 9.815 hectares. The proposed housekeeping amendment is proposing an A1-126 zone and an A1 zone, again to reflect the intent of the amendment from 2014. Next one is a vacant lot on Feeder Road East. Again, in 2014 was subject of a zoning amendment to the previous zoning bylaw, which zoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings. The housekeeping amendment is proposing an A2-1 zone to reflect the intent of that 2014 amendment. This next one is a vacant lot on Dixie Road and 21641 Dixie Road. Again, this amendment was made in 2014, not carried forward to the current zoning bylaw. The amendment rezoned the farm parcel to prohibit dwellings, and 21641 Dixie Road to exempt the parcel from the minimum distance separation requirements, to permit a maximum of 8 livestock units and prohibit new livestock facilities. So the housekeeping amendment is proposing that this be reflected with an A1-1 and A2-1 zone on the farm parcel and an A2-76 zone for 21641 Dixie Road to reflect the intent of that amendment. And our final one this evening is a vacant lot on Hewitt Road. This again was a surplus farm dwelling, severance and zoning, and the housekeeping amendment is proposing that the farmland be rezoned to A2-1 to prohibit dwellings to reflect the intent of that 2014 amendment. So in terms of agency comments and public comments received, so the application was circulated to external agencies and internal departments for review and comment. The Township Drainage Department noted no concerns or comments. The Township Building Department also had no concerns or comments. Niagara Region noted no comments with regards to matters of provincial or regional interest. A public meeting notice was posted in the local newspaper, as well as the Township's website under the news item on the homepage, as well as the Planning Act public notices page. I will note to Council that I have received several inquiries from affected property owners. Each property owner received a letter from myself as well as a copy of the notice identifying that a proposed zoning change for their property. And these inquiries were just sought to clarify what the proposed changes were and the intent of the amendments.
Go ahead, John. Thank you. Okay, does any other member of council have any questions or comments regarding the proposed amendment? No? Sure. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair, to Sarah. Thanks for the report. Just two things. It says that the Niagara this week goes to everyone. It doesn't. For anybody who lives on a gravel road, they get thrown at the end. And also, we didn't get a copy of the mapping. That probably would have helped a lot beforehand. But thank you.
Is there anybody in the gallery that wishes to provide comment on the proposed amendment? Okay, seeing no further comments, I'll now ask the planner to review next steps.
So a planning report will be brought back to council regarding a complete review of the proposed amendment, and that will be considered by council at a later date. Tentatively, we're looking at one of the council meetings in January, subject to council's approval of the schedule this evening.
Okay, that concludes the public meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council regarding the proposed application, you must make a written request to the Deputy Clerk of the Township. Our second public meeting this evening is respecting Hamlet residential lot coverage. In accordance with the Planning Act, a public meeting is held to present information regarding the proposed amendment to the public and for council to receive comments from the public. Staff will not make a recommendation and council will not make a decision on the proposal at this evening's public meeting. A planning report will be brought forward by staff and considered by council at a later date. As a member of the public, you are welcome to request to be notified of any future meetings respecting the proposed amendment. Please provide your contact information on the sign-in sheet located at the back of council chambers or contact the deputy clerk. Please be advised that the sign-in information will form part of a public record for these applications. I'll now ask the planner to provide details on the purpose of the proposed amendment and any written comments received.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this public meeting is regarding a township-initiated zoning amendment that seeks to increase the maximum lot coverage for the residential zones within the township's hamlets. So this amendment was initiated as a result of council discussion last year regarding a development proposal in Winger, where council indicated a preference that the change in lot coverage be applied equally to all lands within the hamlet and not implemented on a site-specific basis. So lot coverage is defined as the percentage of the lot area covered by all buildings above ground level. And this would include the footprint of a dwelling, any attached garages, accessory buildings, as well as covered porches, decks, patios, balconies, and stairs. So this proposed amendment would increase the maximum lot coverage in the residential R1 zone under bylaw 58178 and the residential hamlet RH zone under bylaw 034-2014, increasing it from 7% to 10%. So staff believe that this increase is minor and reflective of the current housing trends and applications that the planning department is receiving. In terms of the comments received, so again, this application was circulated to external agencies and internal departments. The drainage superintendent had no concerns or comments, as did the building department. And again, the Niagara region had no comments with respect to provincial or regional matters. The public meeting notice was posted in the local newspaper, as well as the township's website under the news items on the homepage and the Planning Act public notices page. To date, I've only received one written public comment from Culture Developments on behalf of Deborah Marr at 41715 Millrace Road. Their comments indicated that the amendment better enables the current comprehensive zoning bylaw to align with recent consumer trends and neighboring municipalities' planning policies. They noted that there is a growing demand for larger single-family dwellings as a result of the popularity of working from home and multi-generational households. It was their view that the proposed amendment would contribute to positive population growth and allow a variety of home styles.
Any members of council have any questions or comments regarding the proposed amendment? Go ahead, John.
Mayor, to Mrs. Ivins, is this, so you could go to 10%, that, what's that do as far as our septic beds? So, you know, is that, if it's a lot, you know, it works with the septic system that's in there, then you can go to 10. Or if you upgrade your septic system, then you can go. So it's not just an automatic.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan. So that's correct. Even though we're applying a broad 10% to every lot that's within these zones, when they come in for a building permit application to, say, do an addition or build a new home, it gets evaluated with respect to the size of the septic system that's needed for that structure. So there may be instances where someone is within a R1 or an RH zone that permits the 10%, but based on the lot size and what they're proposing, they may not be able to get a built structure that's 10% lot coverage because of restrictions from septic. But again, that's reviewed at a building permit stage.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Is there anyone in the gallery that wishes to provide comment on the proposed amendment? No. Seeing no further comments, I'll now ask the planner to review next steps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a planning report regarding this proposed amendment will be brought forward by staff at a later date. And again, we're tentatively looking at January for that report to come back.
Okay, again, that concludes the public meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council regarding the proposed application, you must make a written request to the deputy clerk of the township. For delegations, we do not have any delegations on the agenda this evening. We'll now move into staff reports. Ms. Louie, would you like to give a brief overview of your report?
Sure. Through Mr. Mayor to all of council. So administrative staff report 21 is a report to seek council's approval for the 2023 borrowing bylaw, which is attached to this report. So the bylaw is presented each year as an interim cash flow measure until taxes are collected and other revenues are received. And the treasurer is authorized through the Municipal Act to borrow for current expenditures once this bylaw is approved.
That administrative staff report, can I have a motion that administrative staff report ASR 022/2022 regarding an interim 2023 tax levy bylaw be received, and that the interim tax levy installment due dates be set as February 28th, 2000. Oh, sorry. Oh. How do I got my pages wrong here? Sorry for that. So can I have a motion that the administrative staff report ASR 023/2022 respecting, where are you then? Excuse me. Right here. Okay. Oh don't know why my page is different now. Okay, let's try this again. Can I have a motion that administrative staff receive staff report ASR 021 or ASR 21 2022 RE borrowing for current expenditures. Ms. Louie, would you like to give a brief overview of your report? Sorry, we're just getting lost here. Okay, let's try another motion that the administrative staff report ASR 021 2022 regarding the 2023 borrowing for current expenditures be received, and that the attached bylaw, being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to allow the Township of Wainfleet to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023, be read and passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder? 1 and 2. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, then that state the result. Now we can vote. Sorry. Everybody? Yeah, that's my first time. Oh, all right. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Now,
Mr. Mayor, just
oh, go ahead.
one thing. It helps the recording secretary if you identify the mover and the seconder for the record, rather than she can maybe see them but maybe not. So I would suggest that you get one, name them, and then name the seconder.
Thank you. Now, now we're going to move on to ASR 022/2022 RE interim 2023 tax levy bylaw. Ms. Liu, would you like to give a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. So through the mayor to all of council. So the purpose of this report is to seek council approval for the 2023 interim tax levy bylaw. The bylaw is prepared each year in accordance with the Municipal Act and will come into effect on January 1st, 2023. So this allows the municipality to levy interim tax bills prior to budget approval, and it's billed on 50% of the prior year and payable in 2 installments, which are in February and April.
I put a motion forward that the administrative staff report ASR 022/2022 regarding the interim 2023 tax levy bylaw be received, and that the interim tax levy installment due dates be set as February 28th, 2023 and April 28th, 2023, and that the attached bylaw, being a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for 2023 in the Township of Wainfleet, be read and passed. Can I have a motion? Mover, Councilor McCullen. Seconder, Councilor Van Fleet. Thank you. We're getting there. All right. Any discussion? No? Okay. Can we call a vote? Okay, that's carried. And now we're going to move on to ASR 023/2022. Cancellation, reduction, or refund of property tax for the taxation years 2020 to 2022. Ms. Louie, again, would you like to give a brief overview of this report?
Thank you. So through the mayor to all of council. So the purpose of this report is to seek council approval in order to cancel, reduce, or refund property tax of the applicants in accordance with the recommendations of the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation's assessor. So the total write-off is $6,296.29. That's the combined portion. So the Wainfleet municipal portion being $2,871.49.
Okay, can I have a motion that administrative staff report ASR 023/2022 respecting cancellation, reduction, and refund of property tax be received, and that council approve the attached applications pursuant to Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001 to write off taxes as follows. Application 2022-02, $3,047.36. 2022-03, $347.84. 2022-04, $1,653.55. 2022/05, $1,247.54. ASR 024/2022, 2022 municipal. Where'd you want in there? Okay. Okay, it's not in my little here thing. No problem. Okay, can I ask for any discussion on the matter? Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Gilmore, Councillor Anderson. And now I need discussion on the matter. Okay. Can I call the vote on it now? All in favor? Okay. Opposed? And that is carried. All right. We're going to move on to ASR 024/2022, respecting 2022 municipal and school board election accessibility report. Mr. Colasso, would you like to give a brief overview of this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, Section 12 of the Elections Act, Municipal Elections Act, requires election staff to provide a report to Council following every election, identifying the steps taken by the Clerk's Department in improving or making accessible the election process for the citizens of the Township. This report provides that summary. We're prepared to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, can put a motion forward for that ASR 024/2022 respecting the 2022 municipal and school board election accessibility report be received as information. Councillor McCullen, Councillor Van Fleet, any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
I just have a comment on the paragraph stating to address these voters. It says, do not agree with the vote by mail. I don't know if it's an absolute do not agree with. I think some people had some concerns around voting by mail, but did not disagree with it. I usually heard more concerns about the process, which may be something of more education or whatever, but I'm just wondering if it would have been maybe a softer memo if we had have said, rather than do not agree with, we had have inserted something a little softer that said had concerns with. I'll yield back.
Any further comments or discussion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council and to Councillor Anderson, we will take that under advisement and appreciate your thoughts on that, and we will consider the wording a little more carefully in future reports.
Any further comments or discussion? Okay, I'll move for a motion that ASR 024/2022 respecting the 2022 municipal and school board election accessibility report received as information. Motion? Councilor McCullum? No, we were. Yeah, sorry, my script is a little off on some of this stuff. Okay, so I'll call the vote for it. Okay. All in favor? Yeah. Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to ASR 025/2022, respecting the 2023 council meeting schedule. Mr. Colasso, would you like to give a brief overview of this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council. Attached to this report, you will find a proposed meeting schedule for next year, 2023. We have basically taken the provisions of the procedural bylaw, which propose regular meetings held every 3 weeks. And we have tried to keep that cycle as close as possible to what's proposed. For the most part, we think we've been able to do that, with the exception of the month of February, where we've had to compress one meeting cycle in order to accommodate some budget meetings. So at this time, the schedule as proposed in the report is being presented for your consideration. And for ease of access for members of council, we've prepared a draft calendar that's sitting on everyone's desk. And if it is approved, we'll ensure that this is also posted on the website and made available to the public.
I'll put a motion forward that the administrative staff report ASR 025/2022 respecting the 2023 council meeting schedule be received, and that the 2023 council meeting schedule outlined in the report be confirmed and adopted. Mover, Councillor McKellen, Councillor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Councillor Van Fleet?
Through you, Chair, to Mr. Colasa. I have a question about October 31st on Halloween. Should we change that date to maybe November 6th? As there's only one meeting, or sorry, November 7th? I don't want to do Halloween. I'm sure the mayor doesn't want to do Halloween with little people either.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are at the direction of council, so if there is a movement you'd like to make, we can by all means accommodate that.
Okay, I got one more. I also have March 14th, which is during March break. That doesn't seem convenient either for people with littles or grand littles.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the sort of special second budget meeting that we had proposed for adoption of the operating budget. It is one that, potentially, council could complete adoption of the budget on February 28th, which would mean that you do not require the meeting on the 14th at all. It's sort of an extra meeting. If you would like to reschedule that to an alternate date, again, we can accommodate that as well. We're at the direction of council on that.
Well, I don't know how my colleagues feel, but there are two that I would like to see moved.
Any other comments or discussion? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, perhaps the March 14, that's can be a little bit fluid depending on what we need. And regarding Halloween, it's probably a little maybe easier for staff if we just moved it 2 days later in that week rather than go to compress the schedule from 2 to 3. I don't really care. I'm happy to have something to do on Halloween rather than sit in the basement, so I'll be glad to show up, but we could maybe move it to Wednesday or Thursday. That's just my comment.
Okay. Do we want to push motion forward to move the date? I would. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Van Fleet.
Yeah, we'll see what staff comes back with, but yeah, I'd like to see those two moved for more convenience for all of us.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, without checking your schedule, because I do know you have regional meetings on Thursdays, we could move the Halloween meeting forward even one day to Wednesday, November 1st. If that is acceptable, we can make that change right here on the spot. And with respect to the 14th, which is 14th of March, which is actually during the winter or summer or the March reading week, is what I call it, but March break, we could certainly move that a week if that is council's direction, whichever way council wants it to go. Move it forward a week to the 21st, move it back a week to the 7th.
It might not happen if we approve the budget, correct?
It might not happen if you approve the budget at the end of...
So we can't wait till the end. We have to move it forward, if anything, correct? Mal?
So through the mayor to all of council, so how I'm looking at it is March 14th is a regular meeting of council. We were just hoping to adopt, generally we like to approve the budget in a regular meeting of council. So it would still be required, I think, even if the budget was approved at the prior meeting, because it's scheduled as a regular meeting of council.
Okay, do you want to go to any further comments on it?
Is anybody with me on moving it at a March break, or we want to leave it in March break? I would like to move it.
I'm with you. Yeah. We put a motion.
Mayor, are you suggesting that the 21st is better than the 7th to the treasurer?
So through the mayor to Councillor Gilmore, I'm not particularly suggesting anything. The only thing is, so the hope was deliberate operating budget on the 28th, and then come back so capital will be approved independently on the meeting of February 7th, following the deliberation of January 31st. So capital will already be approved. So to approve the operating, we will have deliberated on February 28th. So I guess it just depends how long after do we want to wait for approval.
So we can move it to the 7th. That's good?
Yeah, through the mayor to all of council. So it's irrelevant to me, so we're at the will of council.
Okay.
Do we want to bring that to a vote, just to move it?
Are you guys good with the 7th over there?
You guys? For you.
Personally not. I'll be away, but that the 21st suits me better, unless there's a real problem from the treasurer's point of view. I think the odds of us getting through the operational budget in one meeting might be a stretch as well. So, but that's just my own opinion. So we may have to have another one between the 28th and whatever date we pick anyway. So my suggestion, I guess, would be to move it to the 21st, a week later. And then if we have to do something between the 28th and the 21st, we have some flexibility earlier in March. So that's, again, just my comments.
That works. As long, like you said, as long as it's not on March break, that would affect, and it would affect me and would affect the mayor as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the direction that I see is that the October 31st meeting be moved to November 1st, and the March 14th meeting be moved to March 21st.
Yep.
And those are the two changes being proposed.
Okay.
And if council is supportive of that, we can adopt the report recommendation as amended.
Correct. Okay, so I'll put a motion forward then that the administrative staff report ASR 025-2022 respecting the 2023 council meeting shall be received as amended, and that the 2023 council meeting schedule outlined in the report be confirmed and adopted. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Okay, Councilor Wainfleet, Councilor McCullen. Any discussion? Okay, vote. All in favor? Yep. Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Now we're going to move on to ASR 026-2022, respecting the committee composition for the 2022 to 2026 term of council. Mr. Colassa, again, would you like to give us a brief overview of this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. This report is being brought forward for your consideration this evening, as the township is required to appoint members to sit on various agencies, boards, and committees. At this time, as identified in the report, we are looking to council to provide direction to staff, authorizing us to seek public representation to sit on the Public Library Board, the Committee of Adjustment, the Drainage Advisory Committee, and the township's Age-Friendly Advisory Committee. In addition to direction for citizen appointments, we are looking to council for some advice regarding councillor appointments to, similarly, the Public Library Board, the Drainage Advisory Committee, the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee, as well as Niagara Region Transit, Niagara Central Dorothy Rungling Airport, and deputy mayors for the coming years. At this time, staff are suggesting or requesting that council give its focus to the Niagara Transit Commission, the Niagara Central Dorothy Rungling Airport Commission, and the deputy mayor's positions for the coming term. The other positions that council needs to be appointed to can be considered in January when we come back with citizen appointments as well. So this evening, we're hoping that council will, from amongst itself, identify members to sit on the Niagara Transit Commission, the Dorothy Rungling Airport Commission, and deputy mayor preferences.
Okay, so I'll put a motion forward that the report ASR 026-2022 regarding the committee composition for 2022-2026 term of council be received for information, and that staff be directed to proceed with inviting applications from citizens of Wainfleet interested in sitting on the Township of Wainfleet Public Library Board, the Committee of Adjustment, Fence Viewers, Property Standards Committee, Dog Control Bylaw Appeals, Wainfleet Drainage Advisory Committee, Wainfleet Age Friendly Advisory Committee, and that council provide direction regarding councillor appointments to the Township of Wainfleet Public Library Board, Wainfleet Drainage Advisory Committee, Wainfleet Age Friendly Advisory Committee, the Niagara Transit Commission Board, the Niagara Central Dorothy Brunling Airport Commission, and Deputy Mayor. Can I have a mover and a seconder on this? Councillor McCullen, Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? Councillor Van Fleet?
Through you, Chair, I would nominate Councillor McCullen for the Airport Committee.
Any other discussion, comments? Can I get a seconder? Okay, Councillor Gilmore. And moving forward to our Niagara Transit Commission. Oh, sorry. Any other discussion on it? No? All right. Call the vote. Okay, can we vote on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, any other discussions? So we'll start now on the Transit Commission. Anybody? Councillor Gilmore?
Yes, Mayor, I propose that you sit on the Transit Commission. If, assuming you're able, I mean, I think that the greatest impact to our municipality and to the funding of this commission warrants the head of council to sit on that committee. Okay. So,
all right, I'm okay with that. Do we have a mover and a seconder on it? Okay, Terry's the mover, so just need a seconder. Councillor Van Fleet. Okay, and then let's move on to the deputy. Oh, sorry. All in favor? And opposed? Carried. All right, so now we still have to deal with the deputy mayor position. Okay, any comments and discussion on it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to comment that in previous terms, the position has rotated amongst all 4 members of council, each of them being for a term of 1 year. If that is something that is acceptable, I think it's just simply a matter of members deciding what order they want to go in. They can do alphabetical order, reverse alphabetical order, or any combination thereof.
Any other comments on that? Councillor Anderson?
As a first-year counselor, I would step aside in the alphabetical order. I would prefer to be either second, third, or fourth. Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion on it? Okay. Councillor Gilmore?
well, it's not that. I just, I think that as long as we're comfortable with the rotation, it probably, we would just continue the same pattern. I mean, the 3 of you can work out. I'll take the first year, and then you can work out subsequent years. Just, it might make it flow a little bit smoother. It doesn't matter to me, seeing as I'm not retired, but anyway. So that's fine. Does the staff need to know what order the other councilors would wish to go in, or does it, I suppose you do?
If we could get the order, that would make things simple, and we could bring the necessary appointment stuff for the next meeting. First, second, third, fourth? Reverse alphabet, yeah, okay, perfect.
Okay, so we'll put the motion forward and move that forward. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cullen, Councillor Van Fleet again. And then obviously a vote. All in favor?
Yeah,
Opposed?
No, we voted.
Yeah, okay, so that's carried.
And quite, just
Go ahead.
another point where I think, Mr. CAO, that we can finish the rest and get this over with.
As council wishes, yep.
My suggestion, Mr. Mayor, would be that since Councillor Anderson was a previous member of the library board, that she assumed that position, and that Councillor Van Vliet's been on both the other two, and so if I get to pick, I'll take drainage and she can take age-friendly. If that's agreeable, then this is over with.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Which is fine with me, Chair, because Councillor Gilmore wants to be a farmer now, so we'll let him do it for a little while.
Okay, so we're all in agreement here. Can we get a mover and a seconder on all those? Okay, Councillor McCullen and Councillor Van Fleet again. And then call the vote. Everybody in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, so I think we still need to vote on the original motion regarding the direction to staff to go to the public for those agencies, boards, and committees. So once that vote is taken, we'll be back to you in January with public applications, and all the council appointees are now taken care of.
One question.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Mayfield.
One quick question. What form of media or what outlet are we going to use so people know to put in their applications?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the applications will be posted to our website through our social media sites. It was mentioned newspapers. That is actually something we want to try to move away from, because there really is not a good paper that provides solid coverage across the entire township. And the other issue that we're finding is placing ads in the paper is extremely expensive for anything of any value. So our website, social media will be the primary postings, and we will do so basically starting tomorrow. And we will also be coming to council with an amendment to the notification policy that speaks to sort of our concerns regarding trying to use newspapers. It just doesn't seem to be as effective in 2022 as it was back in the 1950s when the newspaper requirements were first established by provincial law. So basically we're going to be using electronic means to get the message out. Posting on public bulletin boards as well. So posting at the library, posting at the arena, we'll put up little signs and ask people to attend.
If I may, do you think putting a sign at the Avondale would work? Local stores? A lot of people are not on social media.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, if we can hit some of those hotspots in town and they will permit us to post, we certainly could. We'll also use the main message board out front, the LED sign, and we'll do what we can to get the message out as best as we can.
Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Through you, Mayor Grant, just a point of clarification for folks in the gallery and people watching on our Zoom. Were you indicating that we would post these starting immediately on our website?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, once we get the advertisements done, they will be going up as quickly as they're able to. The hope is we'll start working on them tomorrow, that once the direction's given this evening, and they will go up as soon as possible. So if it's not tomorrow, potentially the day after, certainly this week.
Thank you.
Any other further discussion or comments on it? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one other comment. Just in the report, it's just a housekeeping thing, under the section regarding the deputy mayor, the last sentence is incomplete. I'm not sure what the clerk intended to write there, but perhaps before the minutes are printed, that sentence could be completed.
Okay, further comment? Okay, so I'm going to put a motion forward that staff be directed to proceed with the inviting applications from citizens of Wainfleet interested in sitting on those committees. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Oh, okay. All right, so I'll just call the vote. All in favor? Yep. Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to memorandum regarding Bill 39, Better Municipal Governance Act 2022. Mr. Colosso, would you like to give a brief overview of your memo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide an update to council regarding the progression of Bill 39, the Better Local Governance Act 2022. Again, during council orientation, there were a number of pieces of legislation that were highlighted for council. And at that time, we had just received word that first reading had been given to this Bill 39. And the purpose of the memo today is to advise that that bill received royal assent last week on December 8th. At this time, staff are continuing to review the bill and the act and its implications for the township in the area of stronger mayor powers, evolving regional responsibilities and duties, and the one piece of the act that does not apply to Wainfleet is the repeal of the Duffins Rouge Agricultural Preserve Act. So we're working on it. We're working on it in conjunction with other area municipalities in the region, and we will be bringing reports forward to council as the situation evolves.
All right, I'll put the motion forward that the memorandum respecting Bill 39, Better Municipal Governments Act 2022 be received as information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Gilmore and Councilor Anderson. Any discussion? Nope. Okay, then all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Community and Development Services Reports, CDS 004/2022, respecting More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, referred to as Bill 23. Ms. Earl, would you like to give us a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council. On October 25th, 2022, the province introduced Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act, with associated regulations and legislative changes to multiple statutes with the intent to construct more new residential units faster to address the housing supply crisis. At an expedited rate, Bill 23 received royal assent on November 28, 2022. This report identifies the amendments that are currently in effect, especially focusing on the Development Charges Act as well as the Planning Act, which will fundamentally change how land use planning approvals are processed, approved, and implemented, and the overall potential impact on the township's financial operations. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put a motion forward that the Community and Development Services Staff Report CDS 004/2022 be received for information. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Anderson, Councilor Gilmore. Is there any discussion? Councilor Anderson.
Just a point of clarity for myself, on page 2, under subheading opinion discussion, the last sentence where it states the province, et cetera, approved the regional on November 4th of 2023. Is that just a typo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Should be 2022. November 4th, 2022.
Thank you.
Any further comments or discussions? Okay, so I'll just call the vote. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? It's carried. Now we're going to move on to the fire staff reports. FSR 010/2022, respecting 2022 third quarter fire and emergency services review. Chief Alcock, would you like to give us a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The report that you have before you this evening is just our regular quarterly report highlighting the fire department activities from July to September of 2022.
Okay, thank you. I'll put a motion that the fire staff report FSR 010/2022, respecting the 2022 third quarter fire and emergency services review, be received for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Anderson, Councillor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Councillor Van Fleet.
Through you, Chair, to the Chief. Chief, I just wanted to clarify for anybody who doesn't know what a VSA means.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. A VSA stands for vital signs absent. So that's a medical call that we respond to where there's no pulse or breathing.
Any further comments or discussion? Councillor Anderson?
Through you, Mayor, to the Chief. Have you noticed any year-over-year trends, any trending, like, for example, more motor vehicle, more VHS, more severity in the patient that you are either absent or vitals totally? Is it trending in any direction for the team?
So I would say if for the quarterly report, I don't capture trends in that. I'd normally do that in my annual. Certainly you'll see in the annual report, we did see a drop in call volume when the pandemic hit. While there was less calls, they were more serious in nature. So that is something that puts a strain on our responders. But that has since, coming out of that, especially this year, you'll see that our call volume has returned to higher than pre-pandemic numbers. What's happening is, as we're all aware, there is a huge strain on the healthcare system as a whole. And that goes beyond just hospitals. That's home care, that's hospitals, that's EMS, and of course we're an assistant to EMS. So where there's extended call times, we end up having to be the stopgap for EMS. So that's, I think, one of the biggest strains on our service today.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
I know you do your quarterlies, but I found it interesting that the addresses on this one were particularly events that look to occur sort of south of number 3.
Yes, and again, I capture that in the annual where I break down by station kind of where our core response area is. But you're correct. It is the most densely populated and therefore generates the most of the calls.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other comments, discussion? Okay, can we call the vote? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to the memorandum regarding structural firefighting ensembles in Breck's bunker gear. Chief Alcock, would you like to give us another brief overview of this memo?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. This memo, starting in 2019, we started a flat line approach for budget development where we took the number of assets that we have regarding personal protective equipment and we flatlined that purchasing based on the number of volunteers that we have. Since that time, we've purchased 12 sets of bunker gear annually. Knowing that our budget is normally approved after the new year, I've been made aware by our supplier that we're expected to see a price increase. So similarly to last year, to avoid that, I'd like to get that order in ahead of time before the budget's approved. We'll still capture it in the budget, but at least we can get the order in now before we see that price increase.
Okay, so I'll put a motion forward that memorandum regarding the structural firefighting ensembles bunker gear be received and that staff be directed to purchase the structural firefighting PPE before the 2023 budget is approved to avoid the quoted price increase set to take effect on February 1st, 2023, and that staff include these expenses in our 2023 capital PPE budget. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Councilor McCullen, Councilor Anderson, and then let's go to any discussion. Okay, so all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we're moving on to Public Works. Public Works Report 017-2022, respecting the 2022 Municipal Bridge Culvert Inspection. Mr. Nam, would you like to give us a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to members of council. The township currently has 15 bridges that are solely owned by the township, and 2 additional bridges that are partially owned between us and the town and West Lincoln. As you may be aware, the township is required under under Ontario Regulation 104-97 to perform an inspection on all our structures that span 3 meters or greater on a biannual basis. Each structure is assigned a priority rating to assist the township in determining future repairs and replacements based on their bridge overall condition index. As you see in the report, we currently have one structure in very good condition, which is a first in my time being here, and that's because we finally replaced the Gents Road Bridge in 2022. There's a slight error in the second table, which indicates a summary of changes. It should be noted that the yearly total cost should read 2020 and 2022 rather than 2018 and 2020. The Zion Road Bridge number 13 is a rigid frame structure and is currently under review as part of a Section 78 under the Drainage Act. And we'll be including that structure for replacement with a culvert rather than a bridge, similar to what we did on Gents Road. And we'll be including that in costs in future budget deliberations that we'll be anticipating. Included in the appendix also is the assessment cost forecasting. As you have noticed in the percentage cost over the period of 2018 to 2020, there was a drastic increase of 24.9%, and additionally 3.9% between 2020 and 22. And a lot of that has to do with the inflationary costs as well as manufacturing and labor costs. Staff will be including minor repairs and replacement costs for future structures in the 2023 capital budget presentation for council.
I'll put a motion forward that Public Works report is 017-2022 respecting the submission of the 2022 Municipal Bridge and Culvert Inspection Report be received for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor McCullen, Councillor Anderson, any discussion? Councillor Wainfleet?
Through you, Chair, to Richard. I know we discussed this, but just to have it in open so everybody knows, I'm wondering what category or where bridges fall that run under the roads but aren't technically, and I'm going to use Gilmore Road because I'm familiar with it, right? There's one that runs under a culvert or what have you that runs at the Kelly, and then at the other end, across Bell, there's also a culvert. There's several of them, being on the Drainage Committee. Why are those not included as bridges? All of those culverts, all of those, everything?
Through your worship to Councillor Wainfleet, the biggest portion of it is they don't span 3 meters or greater. They may be close to 3 meters in size, but if they're under, they're not. They don't have to be inspected on a biannual basis. We're only required to do those with a 3 meter or greater spans. We constantly review them as we do drainage reports, drainage updates as drainage cleaning, as well as our road patrols capture a lot of those areas if we find deficiencies. As well as members of the public when they submit requests for service or from flooding issues, that's when we inspect a lot of those. We will be proposing something in the budget this year in order to capture the majority of our culverts as part of a requirement that we're going to be facing moving forward to update our asset management is to actually locate our culverts, all our asset culverts. So that'll be something that we'll be proposing in the budget.
Good to know. And I just am stuck on Shields Road. I'm not going to ever get over that. Just put it out there.
Any further comment or discussion? Councillor Gilmore?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment, Richard. Regarding Gents Road, the code, like it used to be a slab on a steel girder, now it's a culvert. Is that, unless you delineate concrete box culverts and steel as girders, I'm just not sure.
Through your worship, yeah, the original report, we will still be probably listing it as the same number because it's in the same location. Even though we've changed the actual structure itself of the actual building construction, it'll be moving forward, it'll be HDPE rather than steel girder.
Okay, good, thanks.
Councillor McCullen?
You, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nan. When you talked about asset management and culverts, are you talking every single culvert on every single road that goes into a driveway?
Through your worship, we have been given some notice that I believe is at 2024 all core assets in the municipality have to be identified. All assets, sorry, not just core assets. And they have to be included in our asset management program moving forward. And yes, that would include every culvert.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So do we, you think this is funny?
No, trust me, I don't.
Do we have to hire a consultant to do that, or can we get it done on our own?
Through your worship, staff of, we were flabbergasted when we found out, and we have been doing various researches. We have been looking at contractors, potential pricing, as well as potentially looking at doing it in-house. So part of the assessment that has to be done is not just the physical location, but the size, the make of the culvert, or the material that it's made out of, as well as the condition. So we may be looking at doing it in-house for a period, and it will take several months to do it.
Go ahead, Councilor McClellan.
So one more. I might suggest that we go to Niagara College and get a couple of the CET students that are taking construction engineering, hire them for the summer, give them a GPS, and if you're doing it, you might as well know where they are as you're going down the road. And they're smart enough, they've been trained in this, they'll know what the culvert is made of, the size, they give you the invert. It might be a good idea, and we get some of these kids who'll get experience, and we might get them at a relatively better price than.
Through your worship to Councilor McClellan, yes, we have been looking at not just how we're going to get the data collected or who's going to collect it, but also how we're going to collect it. So we're looking at everything from software to the hardware, so they can actually pick up the GPS locations and then record all the data as well. But we're looking at all avenues, and we have been trying to get the contacts for the school in order to reach out to them as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any further comment or discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Van
Sorry,
Fleet.
one more question. So, Richard, does that include all of the roads that cross the feeder? Because I know at one time, Pettit was an actual bridge, once upon a time, and then it moved. So, how is that not a bridge? I don't understand when it's that wide.
Through your worship, a lot of the crossovers over the feeder canal are basically stopped. Feeder canal doesn't technically flow through like it used to. It's not an open section anymore. So the culverts that are there, a lot of the culverts are smaller, and they're just overflow culverts. And then the drainage culverts that actually go underneath feeder canal will be picked up if they're over 3 meter span or more. But we do have some that are close to 3 meters that don't quite qualify. But we capture a lot of those in the drainage reports as we update the drainage reports, or they're existing in the drainage reports.
Any further comment or discussion on it? Okay, I'll vote that the report be received. All in favor? Opposed? That gets carried. And now we have 2 items of correspondence on the agenda this evening. C-22/-231 from Crime Stoppers of Niagara respecting a request to proclaim January 2023 as Crime Stoppers Month. Does council have any interest in entertaining this request for a proclamation? Councilors? Yep. Okay. So I'll move in a seconder. Councilor Gilmore, Councilor Van Fleet. Obviously, no other further discussion. So we'll call the, sorry, Councilor Anderson.
If we declare that as proclamation declaration, does that come along with the signs like you see in other municipalities? Like, will be identified as a Crime Stoppers township, and there may be signs like we have no parking, or like, just wondering.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the answer is no. That is a step above and beyond, and if that is something that council wishes to consider, we can certainly explore that. But at this stage, we're simply looking at declaring the month to be Crime Stoppers Month. And we do have a placeholder on our website where any formal proclamations such as this do get posted. We do provide notice to back to the agency that requested it. And again, we do, for example, we'll post it on the LED sign and that sort of thing to make the public aware regarding the significance of the month and of the organization.
Any further discussion? Councillor McCullen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to, Will, is there any way, like, you read more and more, there's more scams on the internet, on the telephone, everywhere they're coming at you, right? And I mean, I think I'm pretty smart, and you get close to getting caught more than once. Is there something with this Crime Stoppers that maybe they come down to our senior center and give them some advice, or is that not part of this program either?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that actually might be a better target for the Niagara Regional Police, and we can certainly reach out to them to ask if they can provide some sort of presentation, whether it's to the seniors, whether it's to this council, so that it's recorded and broadcast to the public. Crime Stoppers is, I think, more geared at dealing with crimes that have been committed and encouraging public to, in the community, to engage in reporting issues that they've come across. But Niagara Regional Police are definitely on a very preventative, they take a preventative approach to crime, and we could pursue that if you so desire.
Okay, yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Oh. So we'll call the vote. All in favor of, okay, and opposed? So that'll get carried. Okay, now moving on to C 2022/232 from the District School Board of Niagara and the Niagara Catholic District School Board respecting a request for temporary use of township land for student activities during construction of the new elementary school. Mr. Colasso, would you be able to share some information regarding the request from the school board, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. Staff have been working with the Niagara District School Board and the separate school board regarding their work to construct a new school just here next door to Town Hall. As part of their construction effort, the current playground area of the school is actually a construction site, and we have been approached by the school boards to discuss the possibility of the school boards using a portion of our unused facility space adjacent to their property and adjacent to the arena as a temporary sort of playground area while construction occurs. In addition, I understand from the fire chief that they also need some space for marshaling their students in the case of emergency alarms and that sort of thing. So at this stage, staff have been in conversations with the school board. We believe that it is a good and appropriate thing to do to make our space available to them. And at this time, what staff are recommending to council is that the request from the school boards be received and that staff, the mayor and the clerk, be authorized to prepare and execute an agreement with the necessary provisions and clauses to protect and indemnify the municipality that will allow the school boards to use the space as delineated in the report or in the request as playground space for the school boards during the construction period. Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead with a motion to carry forward with that. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor McCullen, Councillor Van Fleet, any discussion? Councillor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Chair, to will this affect the farmers market at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can let Mr. Nan speak to that, but the intent is that it will not have any effect, but I'll let Mr. Nan speak to that.
Through your worship to Councillor Van Fleet, we had some discussions because their original request was to use the grass area behind the pavilion, which would technically affect the farmers market. In discussions with them and site visits with the staff and with the school boards, we chose the area where the stone parking lot is, and we anticipate them fencing it off to actually keep safety for the kids. And it will stop before the pavilion, so the pavilion will be open for use for the market at all times.
Sorry, my mic didn't go off. Any further discussion or comments? Anybody else? Okay, so I'll call the vote. In favor? Opposed? So that's carried. There are no further items on the correspondence on the agenda. Are there any additional items that members of council wish to pull? Nope. Okay, I'll put a motion forward that the following bylaws be read and passed this day, 13th, the day of December 2022. Bylaw number 047 -2022 being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. Bylaw number 048/2022 being a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2023 for the Township of Wainfleet. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McCullen, any discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any notices of motion from members of council? Nope. Okay. Call the motion that council now move into closed session to discuss item under Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, one item, an Ontario Land Tribunal matter. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Okay, Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McCullen, and any discussion before we go into closed session? No. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. Now we're gonna move in. Yeah.